Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet, coming in as always from Acapulco, Mexico. I have a great guest. This is going to be really awesome. I've been wanting to have him on for years. He's really hard to get to. You can only speak to him through encrypted email, and he's not the most outgoing person I know. He's not always at all the parties and stuff, so hard to get a hold of him, but we finally did. Pete Eyre of copblock.org, an organization that I really love. It's been around for a while. Pete was one of the people who founded it, along with Ademo Freeman, who I believe was just put in a cage just recently. I don't know if he's out yet. Fairly typical for that sort of thing in the US. If you don't know CopBlock, we're going to get into all about it, but essentially covering a lot of the issues with the police in the US and its issues around the world, but the US seems to have some of the worst police around. We'll get into all of that, but Pete's very interesting because he's sort of started his training as a police officer, and then we'll hear his story on what happened, but he never became one, and now he's blocking cops, so we'll find out how that happened. So Pete, first question I always have to ask everyone is, how did you become an anarchist?
I would say it's just a lifelong process of learning and trying to take ideas to their logical conclusions. I always questioned things, and sometimes, got in trouble with the self-proclaimed authorities for that, whether in school or whatever. But the drug policy was a big issue for me initially, and I really thought that it was, a gross misallocation of resources and rip families apart and whatnot. It was only later that I really came to grasp economics, and specifically Austrian economics, and thanks to some friends and who exposed me to other ideas, I eventually just said, wow, this doesn't make sense. Like any amount of legal coercion and any amount of regulation around a good or service. So I just came to see that voluntary interactions were preferable in everything, and to allow for spontaneous order and peace and harmony. And so that's really it in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, that's great. And let's talk about CopBlock. So interesting. I believe that you can tell us when you started it. For me, it's great. As anarchists, if you're watching this and if you're a CopBlock sort of follower, but you don't know much about anarchy essentially just means that you do unto others as you want them to do unto you. You don't initiate violence against these others, and you don't want them to do that. And of course, that means government is not a good thing, because they always initiate violence, either through the police or other arbitrary laws, or through taxation, which is theft. I think the biggest problem with policing is that it's communist style. It's centrally planned. Everyone complains about the police, and there's a big movement now with Quentin Tarantino and all these people doing all these marches, which I think, in part is due to your work over the years. This has been a growing movement, and people go, we just need better cops. So we need, they need to be better trained and all this sort of stuff. No, it's a centrally planned communist style system. If you had private security, you don't have that problem. If you have a private security and he does something wrong, you fire him. You can't do that with today. So let's start by talking about when you started CopBlock and how it's been going.
Yeah, CopBlock was founded in January 2010. Actually, Ademo started it. He and I had been on a couple projects previously together, namely Motorhome Diaries and Liberty on Tour, where we traveled around the USSA and interviewed folks around the theme of liberty. And we came to see that, one of the issues, the main issue that cut across all these perceived demographics was police accountability, and lots of people had negative interactions with police. They'd share, and we ourselves, just simply traveling around, being on the road is probably the place where you get the most likelihood of a road pirate interaction or police interaction. So Ademo went ahead and started that in January 2010, and I joined him shortly after. And his background was, he calls it, a victim of the war on drugs. He had engaged in the consensual interaction of selling cannabis to people, no victim, no crime, but still he was caged for it. And as you mentioned, my background was I had gone to school for law enforcement, but by that point I had come to see that its current provision wasn't living up to what the claims were, but CopBlock since January 2010 till now has grown quite a bit, and I think just the concept of filming the police has definitely crossed over to the culture. And I'm not saying it's attributed to CopBlock specifically and exclusively, but it has helped that, and different tools that exist and apps that exist for that. But tagline for Cop Block, badges don't grant extra rights, really is aligned with this message of anarchy, because it says like, hey, if an act is wrong for me, it can't become right just if I put a badge on. And and these legal rights to initiate force that police claim and all their and all the other fiction they claim is really ridiculous. And fortunately, I think with the Cop Block Network and other great projects out there, a lot of people are starting to see that.
Yeah, you're really seeing it's really blown up. There's been like marches all over the U.S. Quentin Tarantino, I didn't follow it too much, but apparently he said, what did he say? He didn't want cops to see his movies. What did you follow that?
I honestly didn't. I don't like these days. I don't follow the day to day of every incident and everything. I did see that he made a comment that was not that maybe was presented a little more truth than some of these other people who just back the thin blue line unquestioningly, but which I was glad to see. But at the end of the day, I think marches will happen and information will be shared. But at the end of the day, the situation won't change until people just stop granting legitimacy to these, and we just hold accountable predators like you would anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had so many people on Anarchast that talk about similar things. We've had on a person from peacekeeper.org, a great app if you don't know about it. I don't know what stage of development it's in right now, but it's a way to create a new system that effectively would make police obsolete.
Yeah, and actually another app that's functioning quite well is called Cell 411 that was developed by a guy in Ohio who's definitely done some cop blocking himself, and it's similar in mission to Peacekeeper, but in creating spheres that you can send alerts to, but it also has the ability to stream and to summon help just for a vehicle breakdown or other things. So it's really a good piece of technology.
Yeah, and we've had on Orion Martin, who did the Sidekick app, and that's a really cool app. I don't know what stage that's in either, but another way to completely bypass this entire communist centrally planned policing system, which is horrible. We've also had Rob Hustle, who made the video that went viral, This is What Happens When You Call the Cops. Both Orion and Rob Hustle were at Anarchapulco last year. I believe for sure Rob Hustle's coming again this year. I don't know if you're planning to attend, but I hope so. And one of the things that you're doing now, you're here in Acapulco, and I always get this sort of funny. I always get every month or two, someone emails me. They go, "Whatever happened to Amanda Billyrock?" and I didn't know really, because she keeps very quiet until you both showed up here in Acapulco, and now you're doing a great new show called the Daily Crypto. So tell us a little bit about why you came to Mexico, and also tell us about the show. Sure,
definitely. Amanda and I, we met in New Hampshire. We both were there as part of the Free State Project, and there's definitely a good tribe and community there that we talk about and miss often. But we left the USSA, and we'll see where we end up eventually, but we left the USSA and we walked across the political boundary and ended up in Cozumel on the other side of east of here, some 30 hours by vehicle. But and we were there for a couple months, but we decided to give Acapulco a try, and just because of the size of the community here and whatnot, and since we've been here, we've started a new project you mentioned called the Daily Decrypt, and it's actually been quite fun. It's been a lot of work. We've every day we wake up and we review headlines, what's going on in the crypto sphere.
And there's so much.
Yeah, it's great, and
yeah, that show is really needed.
Yeah,
because I just see all the headlines, 30, 40. Pretty big stories to do with crypto every single day, so to get that wrap up in a short, condensed way is really good.
Yeah, I think it's really filling a good niche, and we've got some good feedback. And like you said, Amanda, she does the narration, and then I edit the video, and we get that out. We also do a SoundCloud podcast, and that's we've been fortunate to be hosted on LRN.FM. So we're just trying to have a footprint in different mediums, and we are going to be able to go to the Latin American Bitcoin conference next month in Mexico City. But yeah, Amanda and I, we met in New Hampshire. We'd kind of crossed paths before, but we just started hanging out after that. And this past May 8th, we did an informal sort of ceremony, and so we're like life partners. And so it's been real fun.
Yeah, that's great. Sorry, there's some sort of massive truck driving by here. Apologize for that. Just down the hill from us here. I don't know where this thing is. Hopefully it's passing soon. Hopefully you can hear me. It's not normal, but yeah, so that's great. Oh, there he goes. He's stopping for something. That's good. Oh no, he started again. Anyway, we'll keep going. So what's your take on, you've been here in Mexico for a few months now. What's your take, first of all, on the cops in Mexico versus the cops in the U.S. that you've seen personally?
Well, I think like most people's likelihood of having an interaction with the police employees is driving, and we haven't owned a vehicle since we've been in Mexico, so we really haven't had those interactions. We have traveled on buses that have gone through checkpoints, and police employees or other like self-proclaimed rulers have stepped on board and kind of checked people out. But here in our 2 months in Cozumel, we never had any police employee question us or ask us anything. We walked past them quite a bit. Same story here in Acapulco. There are, sometimes like police employees driving around with lights and dudes in the back of trucks with guns, but I think it's mostly just for visibility and to try to have this perception that they have things under control. But I spent 6 weeks in South Africa a couple years ago, and there, like here, I see the private security and how they've stepped up and they fill this void, and people find value in paying them for their services, and that's really been. It's clear that they're necessary in some places, and it's great that they deliver, and I hope that we see more of that kind of stuff but ultimately I would hope that we evolve to a place where that kind of stuff isn't needed, because we all at least respect each other, or we don't initiate force, or we have mutual appreciation. That's one kind of community I'd like to live in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're still a few years away from that happening.
Yeah.
But a freer community, a freer market creates a more peaceful market.
Definitely.
And a lot of the problems that happen here in Mexico is because guns are illegal. So a lot of the criminals, there's criminals everywhere, that are going to take advantage of someone. They always have guns.
Definitely.
And a lot of the local people don't. And that's the problem. Again, government.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, we.
Now, I should say it's actually not very hard to have a gun, and most people do have guns that I know, and you can actually become a police officer. I didn't know this. I'm trying to talk my driver into becoming one. Just listen to my story before you get angry that I'm trying to talk my driver to become a cop. So basically, you can pay about $1,000 and you can become a cop in Mexico, and you get your uniform, and you're allowed to carry a gun, and then you just do whatever you want. So that would be my driver, would be a cop, but he just worked for me.
Yeah, and I can see the short term, you could do that, but at the end of the day, I think the more we can not give legitimacy to their systems, that's preferable. But I know it's, trying to live that ideal sometimes, to its fullest extent would make you pretty isolated and make for a pretty rough life. So, but as we all take steps together incrementally, we'll, get there together, which is why I'm excited about the crypto kind of stuff. Cop block's important to recognize an issue and ask the question, why is this happening? But like you said, get into a scenario where we can just bypass it completely, and some of these apps, like the tools like the apps and crypto, we can stop using their fiat money and whatnot. We can just really delegitimize them and engage in voluntary interactions.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Bitcoin itself is essentially an anarchist currency, an anarcho-capitalist, you could say, currency. It's a currency that has no government involvement whatsoever and can't be even stopped by government, at least not technically. And things like all these new apps for Peacekeeper, Sidekick, the 411.
Self 411.
Self 411, I didn't even know about that one. So many people are coming out with all these new systems. And of course, the best way to get beyond a really crappy system is not to fight the system so much, but create a new system that makes the old system obsolete.
Definitely, yeah. And I guess in regards to the provision of security or safety, we can look to the Threat Management Center in Detroit, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and but just keep moving toward that direction. I think it'll be much preferable.
Yeah, if you don't know Threat Management Center in Detroit, private security agency that essentially acts like local police in the area. And I've seen the videos. I think you guys did a video with him, right? And just amazing their record. They've been in business for decades, and none of the clients have ever gotten hurt.
Yeah, they've not gotten sued. The guy who started them, Dale Brown, he just looked around and he said, wow, there's like, when the police show up, they don't help, and then oftentimes they compound the harms. So he started out by just asking apartment owners and building owners if he and his crew could have, one apartment in the unit, and then they would, deter the predators, which they did, and they've grown the business now to have dozens of employees, and they're hired to protect like neighborhoods and businesses, and with this extra income that they have from providing such a good service, they help economically disadvantaged folks pro bono and escort them or stay with them with rifles, or it's really an amazing thing. But their whole business model is in direct contrast to the police law enforcement, which is about gaining control of a situation by escalating force up and until lethal force, whereas Dale Brown and his colleagues at the Threat Management Center, they operate with a mindset of peace and love, and they try to diffuse the situation, and they say, hey, how would I approach this violent person if that was my uncle, for example? They wouldn't just shoot their uncle, they would try to talk him down, or they would use verbal messages and sort of get close to them physically, and then be able to de-escalate a situation without causing significant harm to anybody. And it's really a great thing. And they film all their interactions with their clients, so there's transparency, it's really nice. And Dale is definitely open. He's gone and spoke in different towns in the past couple of years, and he's open to seeing this model replicated. So if anyone out there, sounds appealing, I encourage you to reach out to them and see what you can do in your area.
Sounds like it's a good business too.
Yeah, it is.
So there you go. Like, get out there, start a private security agency in your own town. Maybe use his model because he's done it for so many years that you could just take what he's done and run with it rather than reinventing the wheel. Right. I could see a huge amount of, for me personally, if I had, I would never call the police ever for anything. I don't care what happens. Yeah. It just would never enter my mind. And I'd be down to pay a certain amount a month, and I have a little thing on my phone, maybe an app, and I have a problem, like something pretty serious. Hit the thing, these private guys show up who work for me, not against me, and they're not going to be all escalating the situation. They'll be trying to de-escalate it as much as possible. It's beautiful. We could have such a beautiful world, and it's almost right there right now. Can you see the changes happening?
I do. Yeah, I think we live at a pretty exciting time, pretty pivotal time. I mean, with the USSA. One thing that got me into these ideas of liberty, I used to read a lot of military history, and I used to see, wow, this empire regime did all these things, and then they got to this stage, and then it just imploded. Why? Because they expanded militarily, or they had this fiat currency, or whatever. And I always said, wow, if I lived in that place, I'd probably leave it before, when I saw particular thresholds being passed or whatever. And that's, you look to the USSA and the tyranny that the political actors there, the predatory class, have inflicted upon people there and around the world, and it's not tenable, so at some point this currency, is not going to be solvent, and people are going to stop granting legitimacy to this apparatus, and I don't know, who knows, they're going to try to probably do maintain their clout or grow their clout, with 9/11, this false flag, or with maybe some crypto kind of thing, like an attack on the banking system or some internet thing, and then they're going to try to ratchet up restrictions and try to censor information or movement of information, and so I do see though that with all these decentralization and all these very smart people that are able to code, there's that saying that code is law. And you can't argue with that. It's neutral, but it really is empowering, and I'm excited to see, how it just continues to destroy arbitrary political boundaries and helps free people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been interesting lately. It seems like the war on drugs is coming to a end. You can kind of, you can answer. I can see you smirking, but it seems like there is a lot of stuff going on in that direction right now. So what's your take on that? Because the war on drugs has been one of the most heinous wars of all time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely ramped up under Nixon, and really in the late 30s got its foundations. But yeah, it's. I think you're right in that assessment. I mean, a lot of the penalties, I think it's past. When I was in grad school for law enforcement, I did my thesis was on medical marijuana, and to just gauge people's reactions in that area, and just to see, like, from at that time period, like how many places, where people were receptive to that idea or not, or just recreational use, or other substances said to be illicit, to what we have today. And it is moving in a good direction in that sense, but the USSA has over 50,000 SWAT raids a year, and it's insane to think about that. And there's all these instances where people's houses get broken into in the middle of the night, and they shoot back, fearing that someone's coming in to get them or their family, and it turns out it's people with badges, and then the person who was defending themselves is gone after in legal land, and so. It's really a ridiculous situation, but so whether it's the drug war or whether it's whatever else, like the war on terror, and what you're going to create new boogie people. I mean, a couple years ago I saw a lot of these DHS and Southern Poverty Law Center folks like saying the sovereign citizen movement and all this stuff, and they're putting out bulletins internally about this, and be on the lookout. And I know that tens of thousands of police employees have been trained in these courses, like how to recognize this and what to look for in these behaviors, and it's like very top down. And even just traveling around and having interactions with police employees, in San Francisco a couple years ago, I was filming some police employees, and they after when they were harassing somebody, they ended up cutting the person loose, and then I asked them for the names and badge numbers, and a couple gave them to me, but one proceeded to sort of harass me, and they ended up trying to question me. But when I was asking them questions, rather than just responding to them and like deferring and like caving in like they may be used to, one of them was like, "Are you a sovereign citizen?" And I was like, "What does that mean?" And you could just see it was from their training that anyone who questions us must be of this like. But I wouldn't say I'm a sovereign citizen. I'm a sovereign that I own myself. But I don't think looking to pieces of paper or clauses or whatever, to try to say I'm a free person, that, is the way to go. I just think like internally, each of us knows that we own ourselves, and that's really the issue when all these police killings like that. Fatal Encounters has done such a great job of documenting, like over 2,000 police employees have killed people this year in the USSA, and and so the significance is like they're taking these people's lives, and they're saying we have like this ownership of you. They're denying people ownership of themselves, and it's and that's goes down the scale to from deadly force all the way to just kidnapping and caging someone for a night. It's just like trying to physically take someone's freedom, and but it's changing. I think we're starting to see more police employees question and maybe defect from their that apparatus they worked in, and I think as more start to escape from it and realize that their self-identity doesn't need to be tied to this corrupt system, and that, hey, if I as a person am open to change and open to new ideas, then like I'm going to be much better of a person. That's one thing. When I first read Malcolm X's autobiography, like, yeah, he went through all these stages, and a lot of people know him mostly for one of those particular stages, but the thing I gained the most was his willingness to entertain other ideas and to change with them, and that was really powerful, and that's just one thing I know helped me become a better person, just because I used to, maybe I'd be a bully to someone in high school or something, or I had ideas that weren't justified, that weren't that I don't hold today, like maybe would say this group of people is better than that group of people because of this, but now I really see that all these disincentives from the institutions and whatnot. So I really think ideas have the voluntarist has on their tagline, one mind at a time. You take care of the means, the ends take care of themselves. That's what I really try to live according to, and try to share through this content, whether it's Cop Block or the Daily Decrypt.
That's great. And talking about cops who've switched over to the good side, one of them is Barry Cooper of Never Get Busted crew. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He actually had to escape from the USSA because he was a narcotics cop. And he's past Anarchast guest, by the way. We'll have the link to that after this video. But he one day woke up and realized that busting into families' homes and throwing grenades in there, flashbang grenades, and destroying the family's lives by taking the father away because he had a plant in his house was evil. And he rebelled against it. He started setting up cops to bust them, which is awesome. Yeah, he'll be at Anarchapulco, by the way. A lot of cool people are going to be at Anarchapulco. And he had to leave the U.S. because they really they were throwing him in jail constantly.
Yeah, and they went after I think they went after his family or his kids or his wife, something. But yeah, it was really screwed up.
Yeah, very typical, actually. I just saw a thing on Mark Victor, the lawyer. I've probably heard of him. An anarchist, another past Anarchast guest, another guy speaking in Acapulco. Him and Barry Cooper are working together on a case right now. I just saw it today. So you got two anarchist lawyer and an ex-cop anarchist, and they're both amazing at what they do. I've seen both their work, and they're some of the best around. So they'll probably get this guy freed. It's beautiful. So what is this about us anarchists? We're so dangerous, and all we're trying to do is get people out of cages and help people to see we can have a better world.
We're dangerous to the status quo.
Yeah, status quo. Yeah, I never thought of that one. That's a good one. Yeah, so if you're interested, I don't know if you're going to still be here in February 19th, 21st in Acapulco. Barry Cooper, Mark Victor, so many other people. It's going to be a lot of great people, all talking about these sort of issues. A lot of crypto stuff. Roger Ver, the Bitcoin Jesus. Going to have a lot of Trace Mayer, another big Bitcoin guy. Most of the Mexican Bitcoin community is going to be here. So it's going to be great. It's going to be on the beach in February in Acapulco. So we'll have links to that all down below. And hopefully you're still here and you can check it out as well. And if you are here, hopefully you can maybe even talk or do something at the event.
Cool.
And finish up with, tell people where they can find out more about Cop Block and the Daily Decrypt.
Sure, yeah. Cop Block is copblock.org. There's a Facebook presence, YouTube, Twitter, and Daily Decrypt is similar. We have a Facebook page. YouTube is probably the most active, and then Twitter, we put up a video Monday through Friday. Again, just a recap of the day's crypto news to try to advance the voluntary society through those mechanisms.
Yeah, so if you're wondering what happened to Amanda Billyrock, that's where she is on the Daily Decrypt. We'll have the links to that all down below. Check it out. Great show. I've seen it myself. She's great. She's as always, and I love the concept of the program, and it's definitely needed. So we'll have the links to that all down below. If you like this video, like, subscribe, share, and that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
It all really started when a friend of mine was savagely beaten by 3 police officers in Concord, California. And it was the whole 9 yards. They smashed in his windows, punched him, kicked him, beat him with batons, just tased him over and over again. And when it was over, he was laying on the ground, he was still conscious, and he overheard the officers, and they were concerned that their criminal assault had been somehow recorded.
We've kind of built 2 different safety nets within the app. The first one is like your friends and family. They're kind of an easy sell for the app. You can get them on board. They're usually further away than your neighbors, but that's a good network of response if something happens. The primary one we try and push is what we call your ERG, your emergency response group, and that's supposed to be your neighbors because they can get there the fastest. They're right next to you. So even if that's 1, 2, or 3 people, that's more than nobody.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.